All right. Alrighty, I think we are all in. I'm going to change the Google Meet tab back to our sentence starters and my expectations for class today. So if at any point you need to come back to Google Meet to look at one of those sentence starters, you can absolutely do that. Otherwise, you'll only need to come back to Google Meet to unmute yourself. You can stay in the Parlay tab for the rest of the session. Really pay attention to the cue over on the right-hand side, which is where it will say speaker. So remember, if your name is under speaker, that's your cue that you can unmute and you can start talking without me having to call your name. And then if you are on deck, that means you're going to be the next speaker or the third speaker after that. So without further ado, this is our Socratic seminar on the Hobbit. Go ahead and tap in if you would like to ask the first question.
Okay. So, when Bilbo first left for the adventure, he was very reserved and really went outside his house. But when the adventure was over, his character changed a lot. How do you think he changed?
Great question. So if you're currently tapped in with a new idea, you can stay tapped in if you want to answer Matea's question, or you can tap back out until we're kind of done with this discussion.
He changed because at first he was really worried, like he was always worried about where his buttons were. But at the end, he kind of got less worried about things over the adventure.
I think Bilbo changed by worrying more about his survival and what to do with like the necessities like food and water instead of all the little things like a handkerchief.
I think Bilbo changed because he used to be really materialistic. So he really cared about like what items he had with him rather than what he was doing with his life. And I think now he's more centered on what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do to help others? What am I going to do to live my life to the fullest?
Sorry, wrong button. So I'd like to agree with everyone who like spoke, because at first he was like he was very whiny, like he didn't really want to go, but like at the same time he wanted like riches. And so then at the end, like when he almost died multiple times, he's like, I'm gonna stop complaining and help the people who had kept me alive all this time.
Oh, it's my turn. Sorry, I didn't say I have a speaker on my end. I think Bilbo changed a lot from the beginning because he, in my opinion, he was very by the book. Hobbits never went on adventures, he said. And so at the end of the book, he kind of got loosened up and was more open to people and didn't care that hobbits didn't go on adventures.
I think he also really changed like his thought process of oh he's not a good burglar, he's not a good fit for this party, and now he feels a bit better about himself. I think his self-esteem has really improved about like what he can do, what his abilities are, what his limits are.
I agree with what everyone said. I also think that the adventure really changed him and how close he was to life or death.
Right, this looks like a great time for somebody to tap in with a new question. Feel free to click that question button or the new idea button.
Why did they give the main character's name Bilbo?
All right, so stay tapped in if you'd like to answer that question.
I think that it's just the name of the person, and that it came from a descendant of hobbits, and then they wanted the main character to be a hobbit so that it was more interesting. It was a more interesting story.
I was gonna go with Bridger said. The name Bilbo could be like a hobbit, and that's what they wanted to be for the main character. And
I think they just wanted his name to be Bilbo because it sounds like a kind of clumsy name and just like a clumsy name and a unique one for a character.
If you search up the word Bilbo in definition in the Google search, it is a noun, a sword used in former times, noted for the temper and elasticity of the blade, stretchiness. So, I believe that might have something to do to portray to his character's both development throughout the story and his start personality.
Well, I think it's just sometimes a name just feels right for your character.
Grayson, do you want to build on what Reagan was saying?
No, thank you.
Oh, sorry. I loved what both Grayson and Reagan were saying about like more of an analysis of the name, like not just why they chose the name, but what that meant for him as a character, like his clumsiness, but also his elasticity, how he was able to bend and flex and sort of change. I know I'm not supposed to talk that much, but that was excellent. Looks like another great time for a new question. Whenever you see the middle blank, it's a great time to.
There are a bunch of people at the top if you scroll up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Waiting.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Silly Miss Pass. All right.
Why did Bilbo decide to ask Gollum about what was in his pocket? Like, did was that just the first thing he thought of, or did it mean something?
I think he was just trying to trick him. That was the best idea. Because he can't read his mind. He doesn't know what's in his pocket, so he's just trying to trick him.
I think it may have been out of desperation because when you're in the heat of the moment and you're scared, it's hard to think of things that might be important to the situation. So if I was in a riddling contest, I might not be able to think of a riddle. And Gollum never technically specified that it had to be a riddle or some sort of trick question. He only said we each take turns asking questions to each other, and whoever can't answer it gets that sort of reward, where Gollum got to eat Bilbo, and Bilbo was shown the way out.
Okay. What I think happened was that
since he had picked up the ring, I think that it said later in the text that he didn't mean to ask that as his question, but just because he was feeling in his pocket and he wanted to know what that was or what the metal ring was.
I would like to actually build off of what Jasmine said about the peer pressure situation, because, again, they did not specify that it had to be a riddle. So when in a life or death situation, would you not choose a question that would benefit for your survival? That is why I believe that he chose that answer.
So I also like to build off on Jasmine because I was going to say the same thing. And so Bilbo like uses his wits instead of like freaking out, because if he freaks out, then well, it's goodbye for Bibbo. And you can't. And so he really like tried to stay calm, because that's what you should do when you are in a situation like that.
I started to agree with, I think, was Desmond when he talked about stuff that was just something that first came up in mind. And when you're in a situation like that, you can't really think of anything else. So, and in his part, he wanted to think of something really hard so nothing would happen to him. So, thinking of something that's in your pocket, knowing the other person doesn't know who you are and doesn't know what you have found, is a good way of like, it's a hard one and no one could really, get it.
I agree with everyone that spoke. Like, I think it was a really peer pressured, and I think that was like there was a really low chance of him actually guessing what was in his pocket. And if it comes down to life or death, you would want that low chance of death. I think the reason why Bilbo asked what was in his pockets was he kind of got the suspense that something was in there, and he kind of got the feeling that he's hiding something.
I would also like to build off of Jasmine when he said Gollum didn't specify the riddle question, and on that question Gollum did ask me a question, not ask me a riddle. So Bilbo's guess was technically right.
I would like to ask, why is Gollum so fond of the riddle game?
I was gonna say Gollum is so fond of the riddle game because maybe it's easier to trick people like that and can make them stay in that cave and eat them.
I think Gollum liked the riddle game so much because, like, I agree with Andrea. It's probably easier to trick people, and it's probably something that he's done for a while, just asking people riddles, because riddles are quite hard.
I would think it's just because that Gollum was so used to darkness and riddles like that, of that sort, that for Bilbo, who had mostly a calm and peaceful life in the upper world, it might be hard for for Bilbo to think of correct answers, so there's a strong possibility that Bilbo could lose.
I agree with what most people said before, and that it's just something that Gollum knows and understands, and he might think that no one else would know since he's older and he knows more. So he would probably think they would lose because he wouldn't think they know all the answers.
Okay, I think that he likes riddles so much because he like everyone else said, he has thought a lot about them and he is good with them. But from the question before, I looked through the book and I don't think that he did that on purpose because it says, what have I got in my pocket? He said aloud. He was talking to himself, but Gollum thought it was a riddle. So I don't think he meant it as a riddle.
Good text-based evidence, Matea. He said it to himself at first, like, what do I have in my pocket? Yeah, a stroke of good luck, or maybe fate, divine intervention. Who knows?
I think Gollum may have chosen the riddle game because he refers to the ring kind of in like third person. So he refers to himself as like in the ring as like my precious, as if they were one being. So I believe that it could have been to entertain himself. So he keeps telling himself these riddles and coming up with new ones. So he's now extremely prepared to trick any smarter being that may come along that may not be as intelligent in the ways of riddles due to how long he's been down there and the experience that he may have from talking to himself.
So I was just curious why hobbits have big feet. Like, I know it makes them quieter, but like, what are the other benefits from them?
Sorry, to answer both questions, I'm thinking why they have big feet is just in their blood. Like, that's how people are born with. Like, we're all born with, like, hair, or we're all born with a heart and lungs. Hobbits are born with big feet, and I think it's just in their blood.
I agree with Lokila because I was about to say it's probably just genetics on why they have them.
I think it's because as they evolved being small, they wouldn't be very prepared to battle anything, so they had to have a way to quietly sneak through woods and twigs and stuff that could easily reveal them, because they just aren't they're not big or strong enough really to fight anything.
I agree with what everyone else said. Like, it's in their blood and it's to be quiet. I also think it's to keep their feet warm.
I agree with Ansel, thinking that they may have like needed to adapt because of like wars going on, that they needed to like sneak past them because they weren't strong enough to fight.
All right, let's hear a new idea. I haven't heard a question from Naya yet.
Why did Bilbo, why won't Gandalf go with them for the rest of the journey?
All right, so if you want to answer that question, tap in for that question.
So in the book, it said that, well, in the last chapters of the book, then when Gandalf was telling the story to Elrond, then he said that him and a couple other wizards went over to the necromancer to push him out, and then that is why he didn't go on with them.
I think Gandalf didn't go on with them for two reasons. One reason was I think he had like business in, it may have been the east. I'm not quite sure about the direction. which later on in the book they did explain that he traveled to a wizarding council so that they could push the necromancer out of his house. And it could also be because he didn't want to have to like hold their hand throughout the entire journey so that Bilbo and the other dwarves could recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses and then work together as a team effectively so that they could then build upon each other's skills that they already had instead of just relying on Gandalf.
Hang on, Anzo can go. I'm looking something up.
I would say that part of it is that the dwarves and Bilbo were just simply not as powerful as him, and he was also generally faster than them because he can like disappear easily. So he could have gone on to scout ahead like he did in chapter 4. Chapter 2, I think actually. To scout ahead because he's just more.
Ansel, if you can hear me, you're cutting out a little bit. If you want to finish your thought in the Google Meet chat, I'll read the rest of it out loud.
Well, I was trying to look for the exact paragraph, but in one of the last, I think it was the last chapter, where he actually revealed his business. And it's the same stuff everybody else has been saying, but I just agree with everybody else because he went on the necromancy. He went on the necromancy. He went to go lure the necromancer out of his house with the white wizards or something.
I appreciate you trying to look in the text.
It's chapter 7, page 114.
Oh, nice.
Do you have a quote you can read to us, Naya?
I can try.
Yeah, I love to hear from the text.
I'd like to build off from Jasmine. Wait, hold on. What was the question again? Sorry.
We're talking about why Gandalf is always.
Oh, right. And so, and I'm also thinking. So Bibbo. So I think Gandalf might have stayed if Bibbo did not have like the ring or the like new responsibility from and respect from the dwarves. So I think he might have stayed to help them along. But instead, he was allowing Bibbo to become the new leader because he has like a lot of respect and he knows like sort of what he's doing.
Awesome. I'm going to read Ansel's thought and then I'll have Naya read the quote. Ansel said, he's more capable to scout ahead, like in chapter 2, because he can be much sneakier than the rest, and he's saved them by doing that. And then, Naya, do you want to read us the quote you found?
Sure. It's, I have always meant to see you safe, if possible, over the mountains, said the wizard. And now by good management and good luck, I have done it. Indeed, we are now a great deal further east than I have ever meant to come with you. For after all this, it is not my adventure. I may look in on it again before it is all over, but in the meanwhile, I have some other pressing business to attend to. The dwarves groaned and looked most distressed, and Bilbo wept. They had begun to think Gandalf was going to come all the way and would always be there to help them out of difficulties. I'm not going to disappear this very instant, he said. I can give you a day or two more. Probably I can help you out with your present plight, and I need a little help myself.
Awesome. I just want to remind everybody, we're going to do this for about another 5 minutes. So if you have not yet tapped in with your voice, this would be a great time to tap in and ask a question of the group. If you have not yet taken 3 notes in that notepad that you have, it should be like right in the middle, slightly to the left in Parlay. Make sure you jot down some notes about anything we've talked about yet. All right, let's hear a new idea from Grayson.
I was just wondering, why didn't the author like make the main character, like that's Bilbo, slay the dragon?
Because they're all scared. They're wimps.
Go ahead and tap in if you want to answer Grayson's question. Why didn't the author have a main character like Bilbo be the one to slay the dragon? It's an excellent question.
I think that he didn't have the main character, or they didn't have Bilbo slay the dragon because it was important that they were somewhere else and that they received the news so that they could quickly get back. Also, in the previous text, it had said that that the dragon was going to go after the lakemen, and that since Bard was one of the main military personnel for there, I think it was important for him to slay the dragon because then the Hobbit and the dwarves were able to go collect the treasure, and Bilbo was able to give Bard the Arkenstone.
Can I still respond to the last question? Because I have a really good response.
Yes, yeah, of course. So just refer back to what the last question was.
The last question was, why does Gandalf keep leaving Bilbo?
Yeah.
And what I thought maybe is because, like, if I haven't read the text, maybe he kept leaving Bilbo to give him more confidence and more courage. Because, this little hobbit doesn't want to go on an adventure and doesn't want to get killed so many times. So maybe the reason why Gandalf left the group so many times, is because he's trying to give Bilbo more courage.
And I'll just quickly tap in. I agree absolutely with that. I think Jasmine said something similar. I also have a connection to Harry Potter, which I'm such a millennial, but I love Harry Potter. And Harry and Dumbledore have a very similar relationship too, where Dumbledore doesn't help Harry as much as I think he could or maybe should throughout the books. And later he admits it's because he wants Harry to grow and to develop and to learn and become confident. And he needs to learn those things too. So you can definitely see often where J.K. Rowling gets inspiration from J.R.R. Tolkien. What's up, Des?
He definitely lets Harry figure things out, and some things that he could have let him know in the first place to save him from a lot of trouble. But like when he's in absolute desperate need, then he'll help him.
Yeah. And I'm going to let Kayla tap in real quick because I know she loves Harry Potter.
Yes, I do. And also, like, how I saw that. So, in the book where Mad-Eye Moody is basically, like, helping Harry cheat to get through the Goblet of Fire, I just remembered, like, he's like, use your brain, like, think. Don't let me give you the answers. And so then he had it, and then but like Mad-Eye Moody was not Mad-Eye Moody. He was an imposter. And so basically that's a lot like Gandalf and Bilbo is a lot like Moody and the Hobbit, or Dumbledore and Harry. So
interesting connection. D'Angelo, what's up?
What is Harry Potter?
What is Harry Potter? We'll have some of your classmates send you some information on Harry Potter. One of the most popular book series in the world, Wizard book series.
Also made into a movie.
Yes, also made into 7 or 8 movies. Yeah. All right. We just have a couple minutes left. I'm gonna I know we kind of got off track there. So let's open it up to one more question. Go ahead and only tap in if you want to ask one more new question to the group. If you have a question, let's hear from Jasmine.
My question is, what would have happened if the guard and butler didn't get drunk and fall asleep? Because, I mean, Bilbo had the ring at the time, so I don't really understand what the purpose of them being asleep was and getting drunk, so.
So I think that the reason that they would need to get drunk and fall asleep would be so that Bilbo can take the keys and get the others out. Because if the people were awake, then he couldn't get the keys, and then the people might see him and all the dwarves trying to escape.
I agree with Bridger. Also, maybe just so they wouldn't wake up if he accidentally like trips or make a loud noise.
I think that the purpose of them being like drunk and asleep was that so Bilbo could get the dwarves out of their cells with the keys, then pack them into the barrels without having to be constantly worried about the guards waking up and finding them. Because then, even with the ring, Bilbo would be the only one that would be safe, and if they were all found, then all the dwarves would be probably killed or put in like harder imprisonment to get out of.
I think it's yes, so that he could get the keys, but I also think it's so that he could put them back to make there be less suspicion about him stealing the keys. Also, the dwarves don't have invisibility rings or anything like that, and they wouldn't be particularly sneaky or anything with how tired and exhausted and malnourished they were. Also, they also had to be grumpy for the next day when they just shout for the people that were loading up the barrels to just do it even though they were heavy.
Adding on to Ansel's, I'm not adding on, well, mainly agreeing with Ansel, but I agree because his response has so much detail oriented, and it really just makes sense.
All right, let's hear one more new idea from Naya.
Oh, I don't have a new idea. I just wanted to add on to an earlier question. Why didn't Bilbo slay the dragon? And I think it was to create more conflict in the story and have it go on for longer. Because if Bilbo just slayed the dragon, then it would just be like, the dragon's dead. Ta-da, the story's done.
All right, let's hear one more new idea then from Emily.
Okay, I was wondering how much would the story have been changed if Bilbo hadn't have found the ring?
Tap in if you want to answer that question.
I don't mean to interrupt real quick, but I can't tap in or out because it says I'm already tapped in, but I don't see myself anywhere, and I don't want to be tapped in at the moment.
Okay, I'll tap you out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ansel.
So I would say that if he had not had the invisibility ring, he would be dead for multiple reasons. Because even if he had found a way to still get Gollum to show him the way out, he couldn't sneak past the goblins. Because the only reason he was able to get past them was because he was invisible. And even then, it was very hard because his buttons came off.
I was basically going to say the same thing as Ansel because he would be dead for pretty much like multiple reasons.
I actually don't think, like building off of what Ansel said, I actually don't think that Bilbo would have died from the goblins. I think he would have died from Gollum, because even so, Gollum would have still have lost his ring, and because of the question that Bilbo asked, because he may have had something else in his pocket at the time to make place for the ring, um, he would have been suspicious of Bilbo and attacked him, but he would have actually hit Bilbo due to the fact that he wouldn't have fallen over and been invisible due to accidentally slipping on the ring, which means Gollum would probably get his snack. Can I quickly mention something else relating to the other, why did Bilbo not slay the dragon?
Yeah.
So I think Bilbo didn't get to slay the dragon as the main character, not only because of where he was in the story at the moment, but also because to make it feel more natural. And because if one character is doing all of the achievements, getting all of the kills, all of the doing basically everything, it feels unnatural. It doesn't feel like, it feels like the main character is too overpowered. It makes it feel less realistic for a fantasy story.
Love it. And I just want to quickly tap in and say about the story without the ring is, I'm not sure I believe in fate in real life, but in fiction, certainly anything's possible. I think despite all of the adventures, there is no story without the ring, because of course the ring becomes the ring in the Lord of the Rings. The whole journey of the Hobbit, although it seems like it's to get the treasure, I think it's really to get the ring. And so if you liked the Hobbit as much as I love the Hobbit, you might consider checking out the Lord of the Rings, either reading or watching after that. You guys, my heart is so full. That was such a rich and full discussion with a lot of great thoughts, and some of you even cited the text and you were contributing and doing a great job on Parlay. Could everybody come back to Google Meet and give some big claps in the chat box for a really successful first Socratic seminar? I am really, really proud of all of you guys. Good job, guys, girls, everyone, students. Quickly before we go, I just want to show you what you've got coming up tomorrow. You have a very brief assignment tomorrow called the Socratic Seminar and Hobbit Reflection. It's just a Google form asking you like how you thought you did in Socratic Seminar, your participation, as well as how you thought you did reading and annotating the book as a whole, and giving me any feedback that might help me teaching it again next year. So that should be really quick. There's also a really short grammar assignment loosely related to the Hobbit called Commas and Coordinate Adjectives. Make sure you watch the video because you really won't understand how to do the assignment without it. That's tomorrow. And then Friday, as I mentioned, is the study guide for our summative assessment. So next week, you'll take a summative assessment on all the skills we practiced in the Hobbit. This study guide is just helping you to prepare for that. It's not that long, and I even included hyperlinks to help you find the information that you might need to find to fill out the study guide. So that is Friday. Really good work today. It's been a good day for me. If you have any other questions, stick around. Otherwise, you can say goodbye in the chat, and I will see you on advisory.
Bye.
Bye.